Hey, what's up, guys? Happy, what is today? Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Hump day, as they call it, right in the middle of the week. And welcome to the Neutral Corner, episode 373. I am your host, Michael Montero. And TNC 373 for the week of August 3rd. We're about to hit August. We're on the downslide of the remainder of the year. The holidays will be around and just around the corner, right? And we're almost through the dog days of summer. Thank goodness it's hot as hell here in Atlanta, and I'm dying. I'm melting this summer. Okay, so we have a lot to catch up on today. And I feel like I say that every time I go live now because I don't get to do a weekly show, but it's good to have so much to talk about. You know, that's a great thing. So I'm going to catch up on everything. We're going to catch up on all the news. There's plenty of stuff to talk about there. We will review some of the recent action, including a great heavyweight fight in London last weekend. By the way, if you're not a fan of Derek Chisora, you're not human. How could you not be a fan of Derek Chisora, especially after that? The guy is just so entertaining, man. Just a true fighter. So we'll talk about that. And of course, we're going to preview the big card in LA this weekend. And anything else you guys want to talk about, phone lines are open. You could jump on. I won't be able to get to the calls for a while because, as I stated before, we have a lot to catch up on. Before we get started, a little housekeeping, as I always remind you guys, pay the fee. All right. It's non-monetary. All I ask is that you spread the word about the show. Tell people about TNC. I'm talking about this episode. Okay, I ask you guys to do that every single episode. Take this episode, copy it, paste it on your social, share it with your friends, get it out there. We don't do ads here. We don't promote the show that way. I rely on you guys through word of mouth to get the show out there. And I realize that we're not doing a weekly show right now, and we don't have that momentum going. And I appreciate you guys sticking with me through this period of my life. By the way, my youngest daughter, Josie, turned 9 months old yesterday. So we are 3 months away from her first birthday, and she's already like standing up. She's definitely got her dad's athletic genes. She takes after me. She's almost as big as her sister already. They're only like a pound apart, even though they're a year apart. So my oldest, Jackie, definitely takes after her mom. And my youngest, Josie, definitely takes after daddy. But yeah, hit 9 months yesterday. So those little monsters, they're growing every day. As my dad always says, hey, you feed them and they grow. That's just his little expression. You feed them, they grow. And he's right. Super chat from my man, CJ. What's up, brother? He says, thank you for the super chat. He says, coffee on me, MOB. Have a buddy, got a suite for the fight Saturday. That's dope, man. That's great. Price was slashed by 30%. Yep. Tickets are moving slow. Bud stoppage 10 to 12 right over Pitbull. Okay. You're not the only one who feels that way. I actually had a friend hit me up today who said, should I take that? Should I take that bet right over Pitbull? And I'm like, I don't know. I just, if it goes to the cards, I don't know if he can get a decision over Pitbull. I don't know about that because there's politics on Pitbull's side. Okay. Several different factors. Anyway, bro, I'm glad that you're in LA, man. I haven't been out there. Shit. I haven't been out there since the year my brother died. So 2020. That's why I went out there to get him, to try to help him out. And shit, I haven't been back since then. So enjoy, brother. Enjoy. Have fun at the fights. But we'll talk about the tickets. They're so overpriced. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. We'll get to that. Okay, let's see. Let's jump into some news. Okay, first of all, guys, new issue of Ring Magazine is online. Those of you who subscribe to Digital Mag, you know that already. I have an article in there previewing the fight card this weekend. It's called LA Season. And I rate each fight on the pay-per-view according to its pay-per-view worthiness, its competitiveness. I've done a few articles like that now. That's kind of like a new thing I'm going to do going forward, previewing some of these pay-per-view cards and just talking about the worthiness. And I grade it on a scale of like A to F. and give you guys my opinions on several different factors of each fight. So be sure to check that out. All right. Okay, so other news, fighter news. Jaime Munguia signs with Top Rank. I love this. This is a smart move by Top Rank. I think that it feels, Munguia's kind of had a multi-management. He's had a couple different people involved, but Top Rank, I think they're going to know how to move him and do well promoting him going forward. So that's a pretty cool move. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I can't remember. They have a fight date for Munguia later this year. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I think this will be a good deal for both sides of that, for both Top Rank and Jaime Munguia. Okay, speaking of deals, Riyadh season, who's putting on the card this weekend in LA, right? Turki Al-Sheikh. Riyadh season signs partnerships with Golden Boy Promotions and Top Rank. So, of course, Riyadh season's already been working with Matchroom. They have a great relationship with Matchroom, but now they're going to have a working partnership, official working partnership with Golden Boy and Top Rank. So, what does that mean? That means you're going to see a lot more of these Riyadh season cards. So, if you're a fan of them, this is good news. It also means you're probably going to see more of them in the United States, because Golden Boy Promotions and Top Rank, of course, are headquartered in the United States. They're based here. So you're probably going to see more of that. You're probably also going to see more of the American fighters with Golden Boy and Top Rank travel over to the Middle East to do fight cards over there. So in that respect, it's exciting because now that there's this partnership, you've got Matchroom, you've got Golden Boy, you've got Top Rank, and the money talks, right? So if the Saudis put up the money, you're going to see cross-promotional fights between all of them. In fact, the fight card this weekend in LA, multiple promoters are involved. Top Rank, Bash Boxing, TGB Promotions, Matchroom, and Warriors Boxing are all involved. So that's awesome. We need more of that in boxing. Now, the potential downside is that, we're getting closer and closer to a monopoly type of thing happening, which is similar to UFC. There's good and there's bad related to that. Turki Al-Sheikh has talked about basically buying up all the promotional outfits, and there's really only one more major one that they're not working with, official partnership with. So there are some potential downsides to that. But overall, with the state that boxing is in right now, I think it's a good thing. It is concerning that these promoters are kind of having to sign these big partnerships with entities overseas to profit. That's concerning. It shows you kind of where boxing is at in the United States right now. But perhaps this could be a vehicle and a tool to kind of bring some of that back, to see guys getting more active. One of the biggest issues in boxing, particularly with the certain platforms in America, is the fighters are just not active. They're fighting once a year. Terence Crawford, the guy who's headlining this card this weekend, he has not even fought yet this year. This will be his first fight since beating Errol Spence last July. It's going to be more than a year out of the ring, coming off the biggest win of his career. That's crazy, right? So hopefully we start to see a little bit of that get healed. Okay, let's see what else. Jack Catterall injured. His fight with Regis Prograis, which is a nice solid matchup, that has been pushed back to October. So it's still happening. It's not canceled. It's just pushed back a little bit. Catterall's had a lot of delays in his career. It's just another one of those guys, for different reasons. He's kind of had just stalls in his career, but so is Regis Prograis. But I like this matchup. I think it's going to be a fun fight. Okay, big fight news, quote unquote. Canelo Alvarez versus Berlanga, coming up September 14th in Las Vegas. This, of course, will be on pay-per-view. So a lot of people were pissed off at this fight being announced. They would like to see Canelo fight a bigger challenge. I have several opinions on this. I want to pull up Canelo's record because I want to make sure I get these dates correct, and my brain is fried right now. So I'm just looking back at Canelo's schedule here. Okay. In fact, let me go ahead and share my screen so you guys can look at what I'm looking at. Hang on one second. Let me share screen. Let's go. Let's go. Boom. Okay. Can you guys see this? Good. So just going backwards, okay, he's fighting Edgar Berlanga in September, but earlier this year he fought Jaime Munguia. Before that, it was Jermell Charlo. Before that, John Ryder. Before that, an ancient Gennady Golovkin who has not fought since. And then before that, it was the Dmitry Bivol loss. Okay, so I'll only go back that far. That's going back a couple years. That schedule, other than the Dmitry Bivol fight, that schedule is not what I would call elite. Now, there are some names on there that particularly the American fight press would tell you are elite names, but that's nonsense. Jermell Charlo, I never thought he was a pound for pound level guy at any point in his career. And I understand he was undisputed and all that, but he fought in a weak division and he didn't fight the top challenges. And I don't blame him for that. The top challenges didn't have belts at the time. But anyway, that is a maybe impressive name to some people. I don't particularly look at that as you know, a top win by Canelo. And then I mentioned Golovkin. Obviously, at one point, Golovkin was a pound for pound level fighter. He's the top middleweight in the world and a very formidable top 5 pound for pound type of guy, at least top 10. But he wasn't anywhere near that level when Canelo fought him for a third time at 168. And I should also mention that was Golovkin's first and only fight at 168, and he hasn't fought since. Like I said, it's been almost 2 years now, and Triple G hasn't fought at all. Then there's John Ryder, who's a tough, rugged guy, but he's not obviously even at the level of like a Jermell Charlo. And then there's Jaime Munguia, who I do feel is somewhat underrated by certain fans that call him a quote unquote bum. I don't look at him like, you know, at that level. In fact, I'd probably favor Jaime Munguia to beat Jermell Charlo at 168. If they were to fight at 168, I actually think Munguia probably beats both Charlo brothers at 168. So, you know, not a bad win, but again, not necessarily elite. Then we go to Edgar Berlanga, who I think we have a lot of questions about. I think a lot of questions will be answered in this fight. Is Edgar Berlanga more like a John Ryder, or is he more like a Jaime Munguia type, and we just haven't seen the best of him yet? Either way, he's certainly not on the level of, like, again, going back to early 2022, Dmitry Bivol, who's clearly a pound for pound level fighter and in his physical prime. And when Canelo went up against him, he was absolutely dominated. I don't care what the scorecards are, 115, 113. That's ridiculous. That was pretty much a shutout. Why do I bring all this up? I bring all this up to say it's very evident, and I've talked about this before. Canelo Alvarez is at the point in his career where he's kind of phasing out and he's picking and choosing where he's going to fight. He's when he's going to fight, who he's going to fight, how he's going to fight. And because he's the top guy in the sport, he can do that. And he's no longer interested in taking on the top challenges. The only way I think a fight with a really top young stud, or, you know, a legitimate, like a super challenge, like fighting the, let's say, Beater BF Bivol winner or something like that. The only way I see something like that happening is if there is an extraordinary amount of money thrown at him. I'm talking like $100 million, like something ridiculous. I think he'd do it. But other than that, at this stage of his career, he's going to take soft touches. And there are plenty of guys out there that have either undefeated records or they've won belts, but there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors behind that. And the promotion can find a way, an angle to promote the fight, particularly to novice, you know, casual fans. And then there are a lot of people that are just Canelo fans. They're going to watch Canelo fight no matter who he fights. He's the most popular fighter in the sport. So, like, he could fight anybody. He could fight me, and people will watch it. So there's that element too. But do I expect this fight to do north of 500,000 pay-per-views? I think it's going to struggle to do that. I really do. There have been a lot of pay-per-views already this year. There are a lot of sports options. By the time September rolls around, fall sports, winter sports are going to be coming back here in America. A lot of you guys outside the United States, you don't understand how many entertainment options we have in this country. We are truly spoiled. We have so many entertainment options, and this is a big country. America is really like 4 or 5 countries put together. Think of the European Union. Okay, that's America. That's basically what we are. So there's just a lot going on, and it's a tough sell. Now, they're talking about the Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry, right? And that's the way they're going to try to promote this thing. My response to that is the 1990s called, they want their propaganda back. Guys, and I mean no disrespect to my Puerto Rican brothers and sisters. I love you guys. But for a rivalry to actually be a rivalry, it has to be competitive. And Puerto Rico has to win sometime. And I'm sorry, this century, the 2000s, for the most part, particularly over the last 10 to 15 years, Mexico has whooped Puerto Rico's ass pretty much every time. There are a few exceptions, of course, but for the most part, Mexico has whooped Puerto Rico's ass. So this really isn't a rivalry. You know, it's a much bigger rivalry. Mexico versus Japan. That's a rivalry in the 2020s. Okay, that actually exists right now. Mexico versus Puerto Rico? Yeah, that's a stretch. That's a big stretch. The last guy that was competing at that level, that was a Hall of Fame level Puerto Rican fighter that would get in there and not always win, but would fight all the top guys and at least be competitive, that was Miguel Cotto. And I was a huge fan of him. I was a big proponent of him being in the Hall of Fame. I felt he was worthy of that. He fought everybody, fought competitive with everybody, and had some good wins on his resume. He was the last guy. So this whole Mexico versus Puerto Rico thing, yeah, good luck with that. Again, it's going to work with casual fans, particularly casual fans who are like 30 and over, 40 and over, you know, that middle-aged group in their 40s or 50s. Maybe you'll have some success with that marketing because they grew up with that rivalry and it'll be in their minds. But for younger fans, they're like, what the hell is Mexico versus Puerto Rico? What the hell is this? Are there any Puerto Rican champions? Like, what is this? So anyway, I find that to be funny. Let's see what else. Here, to me, the real factor of this fight, and I should mention, I got here in my notes, Canelo Alvarez was stripped of his IBF belt at 168. And so this won't be for undisputed. Guys, that's going to happen. I think at some point, all of Canelo's belts are going to be stripped because he's not going to want to take on certain fights. They're going to, you know, he could have taken on his IBF mandatory, but he looked at that and he looked at Berlanga and they thought, well, Mexico versus Puerto Rico, he's undefeated. He had that knockout streak. There's enough there to market to casuals. Let's go this route. And that's what he did. And that's the decisions he's going to be making for the rest of his career. I don't rate Canelo Alvarez as a pound for pound fighter at the moment. Okay. And that's not me disrespecting Canelo. The last thing I am is a Canelo hater. I've been very, very supportive of him. I've covered so many of his events around the country. And I had him on my pound for pound list in recent years, but that was mostly because of his overall body of work and him carrying the sport, him being the most active of all the super popular superstar fighters in the 2020s. Canelo Alvarez essentially carried the sport after the COVID pandemic broke here in the United States, in North America, I should say, because of course we're going to include Mexico in that. He carried the sport. And because of his overall body of work, his activity, the numbers he brought, all of it. And then he had success in multiple divisions. So yes, I rated him pound for pound, but at this stage of his career, I kind of look at Canelo right now the way I started looking at Lomachenko a few years ago. I had Lomachenko on the pound for pound list in his prime when he was really, really doing the thing. But if you look at Lomachenko's resume in recent years, other than the Devin Haney fight, it hasn't been the top guys. So I think Lomachenko's fought better opposition than Canelo over the last couple years overall, but especially over the last year or so. But I kind of looked at Loma like, he's not that dude anymore. And I took him off my list. I took him off my list before a lot of other people did. It's kind of the same way I'm looking at Canelo right now. I don't mean that disrespectfully. I'm not saying that to put him down, okay? But the biggest factor in this fight, I think, is age. And I'll just make this last note and then I'll move on. So in terms of mileage, right? If these were two cars, if Canelo and Berlanga were two different cars, Canelo has way more mileage. He's been in a couple of accidents and had to go to the shop and get repairs. And Berlanga is pretty much, it looks like he just came off the lot, right? So those are the two cars. Now, a lot of times in boxing, we talk about size being a factor, right? A guy moving up in weight, and sometimes you could just move up too high in weight and you just, it's too much. But generally speaking, a guy who is way more skillful and experienced and way more crafty, that can mitigate a size difference. Look no further than Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury for an example of that. That was a massive size difference, right? And Usyk's skill level was so superior to Fury, he was able to mitigate that size difference. The harder thing, okay, and some of you may not agree with me, but I'll ask you to look at recent boxing history, okay, in all of boxing history, really, for examples. The harder thing is to get over an age gap. When you are an older fighter, a lot of mileage on the odometer. Again, you've had a couple of accidents. You've been banged up a little bit. You've had injuries. You've had to heal up. You've been to the top of the mountain, right? So you kind of lose that edge a little bit when you've been to the top of the mountain. And then you go in there, you've lost a little speed off your fastball. You're a little slower than you used to be. Your feet don't move quite as swiftly as they once did. And then you go in there against a guy who is just entering his physical prime, whose youthful naivety actually aids him in that situation because he doesn't know how to lose. He doesn't know what it's like. When you have a lot to lose, when you're at the top, when you have a lot to lose, it puts a different kind of pressure on you. When you're coming in with nothing to lose, yeah, you could just let it rip. And so for an older fighter to fight a younger fighter, okay, even if the older fighter has significantly better skills and experience, sometimes that age, that energy, that youthful explosiveness can mitigate that skills gap. And we have seen so many examples of that in boxing, so many examples. I could point to recent fights and I can point to many fights throughout boxing history of that being the case. So that to me is an interesting X factor in this matchup. Why do I mention that? Because I think a lot of you out there are thinking this is going to be a complete just bulldozing of Canelo over Berlanga. And what I would say is, it wouldn't surprise me if Canelo drops Berlanga a few times and stops him. It wouldn't surprise me. Okay. It wouldn't shock me at all. But if I were betting, my initial gut feel on this fight is it's a distance fight. And Berlanga will be more competitive than a lot of you think. By the way, I said the same thing about John Ryder. I said the same thing about Jaime Munguia, right? And I was right. And I'm telling you guys, that's what I see here. Now, obviously, I favor Canelo. I favor him big. But do I expect a third round knockout or something? No, I don't. I expect a distance fight. I really, really do. At least that's my initial gut feel. Okay. One last news item. I saved the most controversial for last. Real quick, let me get to the super chat first. Another super chat from CJ. Thank you so much. He says Turkey is overpricing the market. UFC card by Riyadh season in September, same night as Canelo. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot to mention that. Thank you for bringing that up, man. Has already 2,500 tickets. Consolidation of promoters will price out folks live. Great points, man. CJ is such a freaking smart dude. He articulates things so much better than me. You need to come on here and co-host with me, man. that is the downside of what I was talking about a minute ago, right, CJ? That like this consolidation, while it's a good thing in a lot of different ways, it is not oversaturating. It is overpricing the market. And that has probably been the biggest issue in boxing, even more than the inactivity. In fact, the overpricing of the market has led to a lot of the inactivity because these promotions cannot afford to pay fighters these rates multiple times a year. They just can't justify it. They can't do it. So one thing kind of leads to the other, right? They're definitely interconnected, but that's an issue. And these guys are getting salaries right now. They're getting purses, I should say, that they're nowhere near as valuable as these purses that they're getting, right? There's several guys on this card this weekend. Andy Ruiz, Jarrell Miller, Jared Anderson, Isaac Cruz, David Morrell, these kinds of guys, they're getting grossly overpaid compared to what they're actually worth in the market. Even guys in the main event, Terence Crawford, Israil Madrimov, they're getting so overpaid. When guys start getting used to that, it's hard to get them in the ring on a pay cut. And most of these fights, let's be honest, they're just they're not pay-per-view worthy events. And you're going to have to lower the purse to make it profitable for everybody. I don't know if they're going to be willing to do that after getting paid like this. So there is some potential bad side here. You can see a consolidation of the sport this decade, okay? But it can actually be further marginalized and become even more niche than it already is. Also, celebrity boxing could usurp regular professional boxing in terms of overall popularity and profitability here in the United States. That could happen this decade. Wouldn't shock me at all. We're already kind of we're moving in that direction. Okay, let's get into the review. I think I hit all my news stuff. Yes, I did. Okay. Let's go back a couple weeks to July 20th. I want to mention this fight in Japan. Junto Nakatani, KO1 win to defend his WBC bantamweight belt for the first time. That, of course, is his third belt in a third weight class. He's had titles at flyweight, superfly, and now bantamweight. And he has entered pound for pound territory, okay, because he's active, he's dominant, he has had success in multiple weight classes. I want to see Nakatani unify. That's the next thing I want to see with him. I want to see him unify. I want to see him try to clean out a division. He's not as popular as his countryman, Naoya Inoue. Inoue's a star, right? He's a superstar over there. He's freaking Michael Jordan over there, right? So he can command financially the incentive to get other promotions to work with him, other fighters with other belts to unify with him. And that's how he's been able to go undisputed. That's part of it. Nakatani doesn't really have that. So it's going to be more difficult for him, maybe politically, to get those kinds of fights. But that's what I want to see next with him. He's definitely entered that pound for pound discussion now. A lot of people already had him on their pound for pound list, but now if you don't, you're stupid. All right, July 27th, the last Saturday. Let's go to Detroit, my hometown. Claressa Shields destroys a soccer mom to win a bunch of vacant belts at 175 pounds, which is heavyweight in women's boxing. Okay. I mean, no disrespect to Vanessa LePage Jonis. I mean, no disrespect. Okay. I respect every fighter that gets in the ring. However, it was evident from the opening belt. It was evident from just looking at the resumes of these two that this was a gross mismatch. I didn't even know Claressa was fighting last weekend until like I started seeing friends of mine back in Detroit posting about it because they were going to go. It was downtown and they were going to go check it out and hang out downtown and stuff. So I started seeing them posting. I'm like, oh shit, Claressa Shields is fighting. And I look up the opponent and I'm like, wow, she's moving up in weight. Now she's going to go for titles in a fourth weight class, third or fourth weight class. And I look up the opponent and I even see some stuff on YouTube and I'm just like, whoa. And I tweeted, I don't think it's called a tweet anymore. I posted on X. I don't know if it was Friday or Saturday last week. It might've been the day of the fight, Saturday. Paraphrasing here, but I basically said, this will be a stoppage. Claressa Shields don't stop nobody. This will be a stoppage. The ref will find any opportunity to stop this fight. And what I was getting at is this girl's going to get hurt if they don't stop the fight. So they got to stop it and stop it quick. So I told everybody, all my gambling people, I told them, bet the stoppage here. Claressa doesn't get stoppages, but bet the stoppage and bet it early. And what happened? Yeah. So look, this girl, Vanessa Lepage Joyce, won the vacant WBC heavyweight belt back in March with a split decision over an even more pedestrian fighter. That title before that had been vacant since 2021. So the WBC women's heavyweight belt, which was only created, I think, the early 2000s, maybe around 2010, somewhere around there. It's only a decade or so old. And that was the first one of all the other sanctioning bodies. That's been vacant for a few years before this year. And that's the belt that Claressa won. She also won the WBO belt, which had been vacant since 2019. She won the vacant WBO belt. It was created in 2019. They had, I think, 1 or 2 fights, and then it sat vacant for 5 years. That's the belt Claressa Shields won. Why do I mention this? I should also add, before I go further, that the division 175, I believe it has about 20 women in the world. 20 licensed professional boxers in this division on earth. Okay. Why do I mention all this? Because as accomplished as Claressa Shields is on paper, and I've made this point 5 billion times, sorry to repeat myself, comparing her to men's boxing to any capacity is asinine. And if you've competed in boxing at all, then you feel this even more. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the kid I fought in my pro fight last September would destroy most of Claressa Shields' opposition. He'd destroy them. The kid I fought, and the kid I fought was a novice, right? So that's not me trying to be disrespectful in any way, shape, or form. It's just to say that the opposition in women's boxing north of 147, the talent is really, really weak. North of 160, it's pretty much non-existent. Claressa is talented. She's clearly the best big girl in all of boxing. I don't mean big girl disrespectfully. I just mean big girl as in she's a big girl. Okay. She weighs more than 150 pounds. She's a big girl. I don't mean big like fat. That's not what I'm saying. She's the best big girl in all of boxing today. There's no doubt about that. But the talent there is not on par, even with other women's boxing south of 147, particularly south of 135. That's where all the talent in women's boxing is. And that makes perfect sense because that's the size most women are. Women are smaller, right? So that makes a lot of sense. You have more athletes, in more licensed professional boxers in those divisions, those women's lower divisions. So you're going to have better talent. When there's a bigger pond, there's more fish in the pond, there's going to be better talent. So I mentioned all that. Listen, if Claressa Shields retires tomorrow, she's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I have a vote in the Women's Boxing Hall of Fame. Okay. I was part of I helped bring women's ratings to Ring Magazine. I was a big proponent for that. I've been a huge supporter of women's boxing. And because of that, I was recognized by the Hall, and they gave me pretty much a lifetime vote for Women's Boxing Hall of Fame. Claressa gets my vote the first year she's on the ballot. Unanimous. She'll get in unanimous. However, after every one of her fights, there are certain members of the media that post her stats, all the belts that she's won. Now, I mentioned the 2 belts this weekend that she won, okay? They try to compare that to men's boxing. And they say, she's got the most belts of any boxer, regardless of gender. that is such an asinine, irrational, inaccurate comparison. It's so irresponsible for media members to do that. And they do it because it's a virtue signal to get clicks, to get favor. You go, boy. Yeah. And so like, that's why they do it. Right. But the reality is that comparing Claressa's accomplishments to any male boxing champion, and I'm including interim belts, some Tank Davis belts, all those kinds of belts, right? It's asinine. It's just asinine. Stop doing it. Let women's boxing be women's boxing, which is going to bring me to a news item I skipped over. We have to hit on. Let women's boxing be women's boxing. It's a different sport, and stop comparing it to men's boxing. It's two different sports, and there's plenty of room for both. And I'm a fan of women's boxing. There are certain female fighters I'm big fans of. Senicia Estrada, Katie Taylor, Alicia Baumgartner. I'm fans. I love watching them fight. Natasha Jonas, fan of her. There's several female fighters I enjoy watching. Okay. But don't try to compare the two. It's stupid. Okay. On that note, I got to back up and go back to news. The Olympics are going on right now. Are you watching? I'm not. I haven't watched a minute of it, including that opening ceremony that was seen as being very controversial for a lot of people. I didn't even watch that. I didn't even know the Olympics were happening. I don't give a shit. Part of me being on the beat in boxing back in Los Angeles, I did reporting on the Olympics, and part of that was I had to look at the International Olympic Committee. I've talked about this in the past. And you see how the sausage is made and how they exploit third world countries and slave labor for most of these Olympic games now. It's pretty disgusting. The International Olympic Committee is one of the most corrupt organizations, sporting, political, or otherwise, on earth. And when you see how they operate and how the people that work in that organization live, they're more pampered than politicians here in America. I haven't supported the Olympics in a long time. Once I learned more about that, most people are completely unaware of how it all works and how it comes together and how these stadiums get built and all this stuff. But it's pretty nasty. So I haven't supported the Olympics for a while. I'll pay attention to the boxing. I'm not going to watch it, but I pay attention to who medals and stuff like that because it matters. But yeah, I don't watch it anyway. So I haven't watched a minute of it. However, I have to mention this. There are two boxers competing in the women's division. I think one's from Thailand and one's from Algeria, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong on that, but I believe that's where they're from. I know one's from Asia, one's from Africa. I know that. They have been previously banned in other world competitions, specifically the last world championships, because they did not pass, I don't know what they call it, a gender test, because they, according to the person that runs the World Boxing Championships, the person who runs the organization that controls the World Boxing Championships, according to that person, these two people tested, their tests revealed that they had an X and Y chromosome. Okay. For those of you who have elementary level biological knowledge, you know that means you're a biological male. Okay. We have the X and the Y chromosome. Women don't. Now, are there some people on Earth who are born with both sex organs or no sex organs or stuff like that? Yes, those anomalies happen. But you're talking one in several hundred million people with some of these anomalies. It is extraordinarily rare, okay? To take that rarity, and then you look at what percentage of the population are fighters. I'm not even just talking about boxing. I'm talking about all martial arts. It's a fraction of a percent, okay? So you're taking a fraction of a percent and a fraction of a percent and multiplying that number, the possibility is so minute. Now you're talking about literally one in several billion people. That's literally the math we're talking about, okay? That what might be female sex organs but have XY chromosomes, I mean, stuff like that happens. But someone like that who's also a competitive combat athlete, yeah, you're talking 1 in billions, okay? To justify, I don't even know if I mentioned this. These two athletes are fighting in the Olympics. Did I mention that? They were banned from the World Championships. They're fighting in the Olympics over in Paris against women. And I'm seeing this being defended by, again, the virtue signaling types in the American boxing press especially, but all of the Western media. Because, well, hey, there's some people just born that way. Yeah, you're talking 1 in millions. And then again, the number of those people that are competitive combat athletes, you're talking 1 in several billion. Like, seriously, dude, you're talking about such an anomaly. My thing is this. What do I always talk about? Strict liability, or not strict liability, uniform standard, okay? Which strict liability is part of. But in this particular instance, you either have a standard or you have no standard. And if I were running the Olympics, I would say if you have XY chromosome, you're not competing against women. I don't give a shit how you identify, what you consider yourself, what is in your underwear. I don't care. If you genetically have an X and Y chromosome, you do not compete against women. Period. End of. You compete against men because genetically, biologically, if you have an XY chromosome, that is what you are. That would be my standard. That was the standard held at the World Championships. When the AIBA is the moral authority on an issue, you know you're fucking up. So I talked about the IOC being extraordinarily corrupt and just an evil organization. I'm going to use that word, evil. AIBA isn't exactly the moral authority in humanity, right? But they're actually the moral authority here. They're actually getting it right. I can't believe I'm saying that. And making the IOC look even more evil. So I just want to make this clear. I'm a supporter of women's boxing. I talked about my credentials with that before a few minutes ago. I have 2 daughters. I have a wife. I have a sister. I have a mother. Okay. I am a fierce supporter of women's sports, but they should be for women. There's a reason why women don't compete against men in sports, because they can't. That's not me being disrespectful. That's me just observing biology. That's all it is. The best female athletes in the world are never going to be able to compete with the best male athletes in the world. Caitlin Clark, best women's basketball player in the world right now, right? There are high school boys. I did not mean to hit that button. I did not mean to hit that button. That was an accident. Sorry, guys. But it kind of fits. Wow, that was really funny. Caitlin Clark, there are high school boys that would destroy her in a pickup game. You take any state in America, the high school boys championship basketball team would slaughter. It wouldn't be competitive. Slaughter the WNBA champion. Why? Because, bro, biology. Okay, I recognize all that, and I love watching Caitlin Clark play. I love watching her play. Most dynamic player in all of women's basketball. But I recognize that she couldn't make a roster in the NBA, and that's okay. Multiple things can be true at the same time. So to bring it all back to boxing, men, which includes gender dysmorphia people that have an XY chromosome, should not be competing against women, period, end of. And if you say otherwise, you're the sexist, and you're the one undermining women. You're the one undermining women's sports. If you're the guy supporting this bullshit, it's not me. I'm the antithesis of that because I'm sticking up for women. You pricks out there defending this shit are actually anti-women. You pose differently on social media, you virtue signal, but in the real world, you're the jerk off. And mark my words, there will be a ring death in the coming years. Some commission somewhere is going to let a dude fight a chick and he's going to kill her. And all you motherfuckers out there defending this right now, because you want to be one of the good ones, you're going to have fucking blood on your hands. Yes, I'm going there. All right, enough with that rant. Let's go back to the review of what happened last Saturday. Let's go to London. Derek Chisora, talking about balls. This guy might have the biggest balls in the history of boxing. He certainly has big ones. Derek Chisora, unanimous decision win over Joyce at the O2 in London. Derek Chisora has kind of made that a home for him, that arena. He's had a lot of fights there, a lot of memorable fights there. I think he's only lost one. I know he's won most of them, and he's had exciting fights there. Dropped Joyce late in the fight. I want to say it was the 9th round, but don't quote me. It might have been the 8th round. It was one of the later rounds. Dropped Joyce. And look, Joyce started this fight strong. And some people didn't like the scorecards. The judges had it 97-92. I thought that was too wide. And the other two had it 96-94. I thought those were okay scores. But I don't know about the 7 rounds to 3 for Chisora. That's a bit wide, but you could go 6-4. Even if you had it 5-5 with the knockdown, Chisora's the winner, right? But Joyce throughout the fight, even in the late rounds, landed a lot of punches and busted up Chisora's face and had him hurt multiple times. It felt like Chisora was completely out on his feet those last couple rounds, yet somehow he'd back up on the ropes, he'd wait for his moment, and he'd come with a roundhouse right hand, and he kept landing them, dude. And he landed some hooks. I mean, he landed some big shots. But as much as I want to give Derek Chisora credit, I also want to give Joyce credit. It takes 2 to tango, guys. In these types of really exciting, like slugfest, particularly at heavyweight, which feels like a thing of the past. You just don't see it as much anymore. You used to get a lot of that shit in the 70s, even the 80s. You get these slugfests at heavyweight. Don't see that as much anymore. Guys are way more technical, right? But it takes 2 to tango. And Joyce, he gave a lot in this fight too. Chisora gave a lot, left a bit of himself in that ring. So did Joyce. So I want to make sure that he gets proper credit as well. And that knockdown late in the fight that I mentioned, he was hurt. He was hurt. He got hit with a shot he did not see coming. He was hurt. He got up. He didn't run. He didn't hold. He got up and came forward and kept punching. So both men, slow clap. Gentlemen, that was fantastic. Was it the most skilled fight ever? Are these two guys super fast? No, I'm actually faster than both of them. And that's saying something. But the entertainment value is there, the drama, the humanity. This was a great, fun heavyweight fight, man. And this was on regular, what was it, ESPN Plus? And it was on in the afternoon, so I was able to put this on in the afternoon and watch it while my daughters were playing in front of me in the living room and watch boxing on ESPN Plus. I love that. I just love that. It's one of the coolest things about being a fight fan in the 2020s, that we have that kind of capability. It's really, really cool. But I wanted to make sure I give both of those men credit and give them their props, man. That was a fun fight. Now, real quick, and then I'll move on. Where do they go from here? Derek Chisora, this was his 48th pro fight. He said he wants to do 2 more fights. I hope he doesn't. He wants 50 pro fights, and I get that. Dude, why? If I were in Chisora's team and his family, I'd be like, dude, how are you going to top this? You had this super memorable fight, a fight of the year candidate that you scored an upset win. Joyce was the betting favorite. You had to come from behind to do it. You dropped him. You did it at the O2 in London in front of a lot of your fans. They were singing your name. They were cheering your name in the crowd. How are you going to top that? You can't. Walk away now, bro. Walk away. That is what I tell Derek Chisora. He's got more than enough money. He's still got his faculties about him, but he has taken some ass whoopings in that ring. He took an ass whooping in this fight, even though he won. Walk away, bro. Walk away, brother. Joyce. He's done. I hate to be that guy. I hate to say that, but I talked about Joyce before, because I was high on Joyce a few years back, and he's a relaxed guy in the ring. He doesn't think too much. He lets his hands go for a big man. Yes, he has extreme limitations. I mentioned being very, very slow, but he's just a massive human being, super strong. I mean, Chisora hit him with massive punches, and he would just be like, "Okay, mate, bring it." He just kept coming forward. The one that dropped him, it's because he didn't see it. The guy has taken some ass whoopings though as well, and now that granite's been chipped, that concrete's been chipped a little bit, and that crack is going to keep growing every fight. And he's going to get more and more beat up. He came to boxing late. He's been an overachiever. He's accomplished a lot. They have to really strongly consider if they want to keep doing this, because if people on his team are being honest, okay, if you can't beat Derek Chisora at this stage of Derek Chisora's career, if you can't beat him now, that shows your level. He's not going to get better from here. He's only going to get worse. I'm talking about Joyce. And if you can't beat Derek Chisora, this ancient version of Derek Chisora, yeah, dude, you're nowhere near a top 10 heavyweight. So they got to really, really think about what they're going to do next. Okay, let's preview the card this weekend. Make sure I didn't miss any super chats. No. Okay. Saturday, August 3rd in Los Angeles at BMO Stadium, previously Bank of California Stadium, on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. It is Riyadh season coming to America. And for those of you just getting here on the chat, on the show, I want to remind you guys, the new issue of Ring Magazine is out. It's posted on the site, and I have an article on there previewing this weekend's event in LA, a detailed preview where I grade several components of each matchup, and discuss its pay-per-view worthiness. So you guys might enjoy that. Definitely check that out. Okay, real quick before I preview this card, the last title fight that was at this venue was in 2019. The last world title fight was Emmanuel Navarrete defending his junior featherweight belt. It was 5 years ago. Something that my boy Steve Kim has talked about, and I've talked about this too, is that Southern California, which used to get a lot of high-level world championship fights, that's kind of dried up in recent years. Now, I mentioned that on X, and a bunch of my California dudes got really pissed off and came back at me like, "Hey, man, this guy's doing the club shows every week. This dude's doing amateur shows every month." I hear you. The California Commission is the busiest commission in America. It does more events, amateur, pro, everything in between, combined than the next like 3 or 4 states total, like combined. So they're doing plenty of business in Cali. But I'm asking you guys, how many big name championship fighters have fought in LA in recent years? I mean, let me pull up the pound for pound list. Let's see. Let's pull up our pound for pound list. Let me share my screen again. Boom. Alexander Usyk hasn't fought in LA in a long time. Neither has Naoya Inoue. Terence Crawford's never fought in LA. He's fighting there for the first time this weekend. Canelo Alvarez hasn't fought there in years. Bam Rodriguez, I don't think he's fought there. Bivol's fought there, but not in a long time. Davis, it's been a few years since he's fought in LA, right? When's the last time he fought in LA? Now I'm curious. I gotta look this up because I don't want to get this wrong, because the fact checkers, they'll come after me. Los Angeles 2021, he fought Isaac Cruz there in 2021. Junto Nakatani, Devin Haney, I know Haney's fought out there, but what I'm saying, guys, is when I'm looking at this top 10 pound for pound list, these guys haven't fought in LA much in recent years. That high-end boxing market, championship level fights, has dried up in Southern California. It's just harder to justify doing business there because of all the constraints, the restrictions. The government there is so oppressive. to any kind of business. That's why thousands of companies have left California in the 2020s, and millions of people have left. I'm one of them. So you just don't see this a lot in LA. So I hope that this card's successful and it gets people wanting to come back and do big fights in LA. And I know Tom Loeffler does shows out there. Thank goodness for Tom Loeffler. Golden Boy Promotions, of course, they do a lot of shows at the casinos around Los Angeles. It might be an hour or two out of LA, like in the Inland Empire and stuff. They do a lot of shows around there. There are club promoters. Engelbrecht does shows down in Orange County, but these are mostly like club level shows. Okay. I mean that respectfully. I love club shows, but that's the level most of those shows are. You might get an occasional world title or highly ranked fighter or something, but for the most part, that's what you're getting. Okay. To get a guy like Terence Crawford, who's one of the best fighters in the world, to get him coming to LA, it's a big deal. It hasn't happened a lot in recent years. Okay. So I hope that LA can turn some of this around. But I say all that, and I'm going to go back to CJ's point. The tickets for this are grossly overpriced. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Your Riyadh season is going to learn the hard way that the American market is very, very different than the market over in the Middle East, where they can charge 10 grand a ticket. You got billionaire oil sheikhs. They shit $10,000 after breakfast. That's not a big deal for them. But here in America, particularly now with a horrible economy where the dollar has lost over 20% these last 2 or 3 years, people are really struggling. Record inflation, record high gas prices, grocery prices are insane. Interest rates for housing are insane. The housing market's drying up. It's rough right now for people. I saw some of the prices, guys. Some of these tickets, they're asking $5,000. Nah, bro. There's a lot of rich people in California that can afford that. Okay, but they've got better things to do this weekend. If the Dodgers are playing, or something, that's where they're going. That's where the celebrity types. That's where they're going, right? So this is a tough sell in that regard. If you had this priced right and at maybe a different venue, maybe the sales will be better. But I'm seeing a lot of you guys posting about the tickets that you're buying now, the week of the fight, that are really discounted, right? They're slashing the price. And you guys are getting 30, 40% off and all that. I've talked to a couple of my ticket broker friends. They said the same thing. So, yeah, you're going to have to learn the American market. And this is going to be a rough learning experience. That's something that Eddie Hearn had to go through with Matchroom. They've kind of cleaned that up and they're doing better. But you notice Eddie Hearn doesn't bring a ton of shows over here anymore, right? There's a reason for that. It's just a very different market. Okay, let's really quickly talk about these matchups. Let's see. Terence Crawford versus Israil Madrimov in the main event for Madrimov's WBA Super and the vacant WBO interim junior middleweight belts. Okay. So technically this is for, I'm not even going to include the interim belt. Who gives a shit? This is for the WBA belt. Okay. And this would be a chance for Terence Crawford to win a belt in a 4th weight class. Now, on the surface, in terms of experience, Crawford is light years beyond Madrimov. In terms of quality of opposition, it's not even in the same stratosphere. Okay. He's fought much better fighters. Madrimov probably fought better guys in the amateurs, but in the pros, Crawford's fought much better opposition, right? So on the surface, this looks like a blowout. This looks like Canelo Berlanga in a lot of people's minds. But there are some of you out there who have said that you're getting Canelo Bivol vibes from this matchup. Interestingly enough, Madrimov helped Bivol prepare for that fight against Canelo. So I get that. Why are some of you having those vibes? Well, I think it's because Crawford hasn't fought in over a year. Crawford is moving up in weight. Also, I think a lot of you are starting to recognize what I've been saying since, well, several years, that Errol Spence wasn't as good as he was sold as. And maybe people got a little too hyped up about Terence Crawford's win over Errol Spence, because Spence just wasn't at the level that he was sold as. How do I feel about this fight? I think it's going to be a much tougher fight for Terence Crawford than the Errol Spence fight was. Much tougher. I expect the early rounds to be very technical. I expect Crawford to take his time to download data. I expect Madrimov to have some hesitation at times because he's in there with such an experienced fighter who can counterpunch very well and can be a sniper in there. And then I think things will heat up a little bit more in the middle rounds. What's going to be interesting to see is how Crawford does, like on the inside and in the mid-range, where on paper, Madrimov should have a strength advantage. Guys, both of these fighters are listed as the same height, and Crawford has 6 inches more reach. Crawford also has that wrestling background, and he tends to do well on the inside. He tends to be able to move guys around. Will he be able to do that with Madrimov? Because Madrimov has some of that training, as most of the Eastern European and Central Asian fighters do. They have some of that foundation as well. That's going to be the interesting part to me, and that's going to determine, I think, how the second half of the fight goes. I'm taking Terence Crawford by decision. I see a distance fight. I think it's going all 12. I see Crawford winning a decision. Andy Ruiz versus Jarrell Big Baby Miller. I don't know what to make of this one. Andy Ruiz is another guy who's just been chronically inactive. Both of these guys have been very undisciplined and had just up and down performances. Miller, of course, is coming off a dominant loss where he got the brakes beat off him by Daniel Dubois earlier this year, but at least he got some rounds in. Ruiz hasn't really fought. So I don't know what to make of this. This is one of those fights where I'm going to be a weigh-in bro, and I want to see the weigh-in. I want to see what they weigh, and that's going to tell us a lot about what kind of condition they're in and who's taking the fight more seriously. If Ruiz shows up fat, which he's done in the past, and Miller shows up jacked, keep in mind, there's no drug testing for this fight. So Miller can do whatever the hell he wants, and he's shown in the past he loves steroids. This is an interesting matchup. It's heavyweights. I'm telling you, this fight may steal the show for the whole card. Also, it's in Southern California. Andy Ruiz is from Southern California. It's going to be a lot of Mexican Americans in the crowd and Mexicans in the crowd as well that make the trip up. And they're going to be cheering for Andy big. So Jarrell is an East Coast guy, New York guy. It's got the East Coast, West Coast thing happening. It's going to be a fun atmosphere. I'm looking forward to that one. I don't know who to take in that fight. I really don't. Jared Anderson versus Martin Bakole. This is another interesting one. Jared Anderson has had some issues out of the ring. He's had some lackluster performances as of late. He's failed to really inspire in some of his recent performances. And he's shown some emotional and mental issues and things, going on outside the ring. He's had legal trouble, all of that. Martin Bakole has had some upset wins before. He's a massive man, big dude. He can hit. He's got good experience. This is a nice step up for Jared Anderson. I'm going to go out on a limb here because a lot of people are picking Bakole to win, and it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me. But I'm going to be a proud, patriotic American and be an optimist, an optimistic, patriotic American. And I'm going to say Jared Anderson shows us a level that he hasn't shown us yet. He raises his game in this fight. He may have to get off the canvas early or something, but he raises his game and shows us a level he hasn't shown us yet and scores an impressive victory in this fight. There's my positive message for the day. All right. Isaac Cruz versus Jose Valenzuela. There are a lot of you out there that are picking Valenzuela. A lot of you. My thing is, if this goes the distance, okay, if it goes to the cards, I think Cruz is going to get the nod. Politically, there are certain entities that are connected to this promotion that need Cruz to stay relevant and to keep winning because they have plans for him. Also, he's part of their marketing strategy with their biggest name fighter. So politically, he's definitely the guy that has the benefits going into this fight. So I could see Cruz winning a decision that maybe some people disagree with, and it is deemed controversial. Also, David Morrell versus Rajic. Oh, geez, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this. Kalijic, the last name Kalijic, for a vacant Wow, there's a vacant WBA belt on the line? No shit. At 175. So I like Morrell to win that fight big. That's really not that competitive of a matchup. Maybe we'll get a surprise, but I don't think so. Okay. Boom. That's it. Okay. Am I caught up in the chat? Yes. Okay. Let's jump to the phones. Let's see who we got. We got a caller from England. I think this is Hamed. Let's see. Hamed, is that you, my brother?
Yes, Mike. How's it going? It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. What's up, man?
Yeah, nothing much. I was just listening to the show nice and early, and I was just listening to what you were saying about the card. I got the pay-per-view, although you get a month free subscription of the zone, so I didn't think it's that bad of a deal. But I was a bit annoyed initially when the Virgil Ortiz and Tim Tszyu, fight got cancelled, but I still think it's not a bad card overall.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something I wrote about in my article. I wrote about, the best matchup was that Virgil Ortiz fight. And I was looking forward to that. It took some of the value off the card. And I still think it's a good card, to your point, and worthy of the pay-per-view price in this market. But where they're going to struggle is with the tickets, man. I thought that really hurt the ticket sales, and they should have discounted the tickets. They didn't do that. And now, from what I'm hearing, they haven't done very well at the box office with that.
Yeah, I heard they did that for the Joshua Dubois fight as well. So I wasn't going to buy tickets to that, but I heard there were people I knew that wanted to get tickets. And that's the one thing I think the Saudis need to control. Maybe too many pay-per-views, although a lot of these pay-per-views I haven't really had too much of a problem with. I think apart from the AJ Nagano card, I know there was a good fight, I think, between Parker and Zhang, but I thought that card wasn't the best. But apart from that, I think the pay-per-views have been okay. I think they maybe need to be a bit careful because this card is going to be on, I think, about 2 or 3 in the morning in the UK. I personally think that will affect people who are subscribed to the zone. I wasn't subscribed, although there was a bit of a glitch. I cancelled in January. I don't know what happened, but I had this channel, the TV channel, for free from like January to July, but now the channel's gone, I think. So in order to watch it, I have to pay to watch it because they put it on pay-per-view anyway. But I think that's the only thing with the tickets and the amount of pay-per-views. Apart from that, I think they're doing a good job. Hopefully the card doesn't drag on. That's my one worry because the last couple of cards we've had, I don't know about the futuristic one, but the Wallin AJ, the Walter Parker card, and I think it was the Joshua Nagano card. Those finished really late. Do you know what time this card will start or anything like that, like the timing of it?
I don't know the exact time, but I want to say it's probably going to be around 1:00 p.m. out there in no, wait a second. Yeah. 1:00.
Really?
4:00. Maybe a lot of times the cards out in LA and California, they'll start at like 1 or 2 because they want to try to get the main event to be around midnight here on the East Coast. I'm not sure though. I should have looked that up. I'm not sure.
That's okay. That's not bad then, because I thought if it starts late, then that's going to be going into like really late into Sunday morning. But regarding the card, I do think this is arguably Crawford's toughest fight since the Victor Postol fight. I'm with you. I also think this is not a blowout, and I favor Crawford on points. Although I won't be shocked if Madrimov wins. because I think he's a very good fighter. I know people keep looking at his record. I think it's just people who probably have not seen him fight or are kind of detractors or critics of Crawford. But I saw him fight about in his third or fourth fight onwards. I think it was against Eric Walker, and I think a fight before that. And I saw Eric Walker in the contender. He was a good fighter. He handled him, I thought, pretty decisively. I think he should have stopped him. The referee messed that up. And then from there on in, he's won a title inside 10 or 11 fights. He's fought some good fighters. Like Chisora was a good fighter as well. And you made the point, Bivol brought him in for sparring. So this is your first fight at 54. I think is a very tough fight. It could be a potentially upset if Crawford it doesn't start fast and is actually in a tough fight, because Crawford has a tendency to start quite slow, and sometimes it takes him 3 or 4 rounds to gain his groove. Against Madrimov, I don't know if that will work against him or if it won't make a difference, because I personally think if Crawford stops him, that's very impressive. I know he's stopped some very good fighters, but I don't know if you could go back as far as the Postol fight, but definitely is between Porter and Postol. And I thought Porter was actually in that fight. I personally still thought Crawford was winning that fight, but that was pretty much a close fight up until the stoppage. So I'm looking forward to that fight. I think the heavyweight fight should be good. Although I gotta see the American heavyweights at the moment, I don't know what you think about it. I think they need someone to come through. I know Anderson, people have got hopes on him, but he's got some serious issues outside the ring. I don't know if it'll be better if Miller wins, but I personally think they need. I don't know what happened to Michael Hunter. They need someone to breathe some life into the American heavyweight division.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak right now. Jared Anderson
lost as well.
Jared Anderson checks a lot of boxes. Big, strong, athletic guy, has all the punches, has a lot of good experience. He is not one of these guys that comes from another sport. He's always been a boxer. Does he have the mental, emotional makeup to survive in the sport at the highest level? That's the big question. Can he take a big punch from a top-rated heavyweight? So again, this will be a good step up for him, and we'll see. But so far, yeah, man, I think a lot of people are questioning him. Is he going to be one of those guys that just doesn't have the mental makeup? I think of Andrew Galata in the 90s. Andrew Galata, big, athletic, explosive guy, had all the punches, all of that, but mentally was just a freaking nut job. He was just crazy, and he just couldn't handle being on that stage. He'd freeze up in certain fights, and then in other fights he looked amazing. Is Anderson like that? I don't know.
Inconsistent. And he was erratic as well. The thing with Anderson, I think, is more of a mental makeup. He seems to be, if not a bit sensitive to criticism, he seems like he's a bit too emotional. I think that's probably the right word. I've seen him snap back at the top-ranked commentators, and I think the ESPN commentators, and I think he's even criticized his own company, Top Rank. I think it was Top Rank, and he's also been making statements about retiring. I think at a young age, which is never, I think, a good sign when you're acting emotional and talking about retirement. But regarding I think you touched on the Olympics, but one thing I wanted to get your opinion on. He's a very good fighter. I think Top Rank signed him a year ago. I think you probably know, Bakhtiar Jalolov. He already won, I think, gold, and he's going for another gold, which I found a bit odd. But are you against the fact that professionals could actually go into the Olympics and win gold medals? And this is a guy who's already actually won a gold medal as well.
Yeah, they made that ruling a few years back. And what's interesting is none of the highly rated stars in professional boxing have gone to the Olympics because there's just no incentive for them to do so. So a guy like Jalolov, who is highly accomplished, but doesn't commercially is not a big star in professional boxing, there's actually more financial incentive for him at this stage of his career to go compete in the Olympics, because where he's from, a gold medal is a big deal, right? The government gets involved financially, and you're taken care of. There's a lot of factors that go into it for some of these guys from other parts of the world. So I get why you do it. As far as should it be allowed or not, I don't know. They let professional basketball players in now. They've been doing that since the 90s. I guess it's okay. It'd be one thing if we saw like literally if Terence Crawford and Inoue and those guys start going into the Olympics, it could get interesting again. But I just don't see that happening. I don't really think it's going to have much of an impact. I think Jalilov will get another gold medal, and that'll help him from a branding perspective, particularly in the part of the world that he's from.
Yeah, he's also Uzbekistan. I think him and Usyk down the line. What I mean by down the line, maybe in a year or two, if they could actually quickly fast track him, would be a very good fight, because he's actually a very good heavyweight, and for his size, he looks like a very skilled and athletic guy. I just don't know if Usyk will be around by the time he's actually fighting the top. That's the only thing, because Usyk said he'll fight till 40, but Jalalov's had 14 fights, and I don't know when Top Rank will try and get him to fight the top guys. I think
the fight I want to see.
Jalilov.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to see Jalilov and Anderson. If Anderson
that'd be a good
is
fight.
Successful this weekend, that's a fight I want to see end of this year or at some point next year.
I think Jalilov would knock him out. I wouldn't mind seeing that, or Jalilov fighting the other big Russian guy. Is it Makhmudov? They both, I think, big punches. I would be interested as well. I wouldn't mind him just stepping up now, because I think he's got the experience and he's got already a gold. I probably will get another gold. So if he could start fighting guys like that, or even Wallin. I think Wallin had a fight the other day. He was only around. But regarding the rest of the card, I think those are probably the two big fights. And I'm interested to see what happens with Isaac Cruz. But I think Isaac Cruz is going to be set up to fight Gervonta Davis. I don't know why they want to go that route, but do you think the second fight could be more competitive or close, or do you just think Gervonta Davis is...
I think Davis would actually do better in that rematch. But I completely agree with your assessment on that. I think that's what that promotion wants to do, and they're going to have they're politically connected, and that's going to help Cruz if this thing goes to the cards.
Yeah, one last thing, Mike. What about Zepeda? I'm really high on him, William Zepeda. How do you think a fight between him and Lomachenko would go if Loma comes back?
That's an interesting fight.
Style-wise, I think that's probably the best fight to make lightweight, unless Zepeda fights Gervonta Davis. But I don't think that fight will happen.
That fight's not going to happen. And this Lomachenko has a belt now, right? So it'd be a title opportunity. That'd be an interesting fight. That's one you could put in Southern California that would sell. I don't know what Loma's going to do. I don't know if he'll fight again. I honestly don't know if he'll fight again.
I heard Top Rank said he will come back next year. Maybe he's just waiting to see if he could get another chance of fighting for Undisputed, because I think there was talk about, I don't think that fight's happening, that they will now both fighters the same, Gervonta Davis and Stevenson, but I think maybe one of them, or maybe Zepeda, will fight the other champion, Barancek, and then I think there could be a bit more of a clear image, to see who the top guys are. At that point, I think Lomachenko will probably end up fighting, but I think he's kind of mentally or semi-checked out. I don't really blame him, because he's had a lot of amateur fights along.
He's been checked out pretty much for the last 3 years. He's just fighting on.
I still thought he did well against him.
No, go ahead, Ahmed.
Oh, sorry. I thought he did well against Indian. A lot of people thought he won that fight. I think he's just been a bit too inactive, but it was due to the war as well. But Mike, I'll let you go. I'll let you get to some of the other callers. Good to speak to you. All right.
Thanks, man.
All right. You too.
All right, there he goes. We're gonna take 2 more calls. Then we're gonna wrap it up. We've been going for almost an hour and a half. So 2 more calls. Let's get to these quick, okay? I'm gonna go up to the Bronx. Boogie down. 347, you're on the show. What's up?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good.
This is Doron from New York, first-time caller. I mean, I think I a couple times reached out to you in Twitter. We went back and forth a few times.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the show.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of the show. Everybody hit the like button. How come we have only 2 likes after an hour and a half?
Is that true? We only have 2 likes? Wow.
We have 2 likes.
Man, that's crazy.
Well, we hopefully get much more. So I want to go over a few things you said, and I have a little rant on my own. So I want to talk about let's start with the Chisora Joyce thing. 2 years ago, when Joyce stopped Parker, he was on top of the world, and Parker was advised to retire, and look how things are now. You know, Parker beat Zhang, and now he's like probably waiting for a title shot, and Joyce is about to retire. He's been told to retire. Same thing with Dubois. They said he was a quitter and everything, and now he's fighting AJ for a shot. So it's just funny how this sport is, it's all about momentum. David Morrell, that we mentioned, is just a waste of career. He doesn't fight. He has the talent, but he doesn't really fight anybody, and he doesn't fight, period. It's a shame. You're waiting for the big fights. Why won't you just fight in your division, clean out people so you get yourself some value? I want to talk about Canelo. We mentioned him. And in future years, you know, people put him on the top of the pound for pound, but every time he really stepped up and he took a fight, I mean, that he was not the favorite. He lost. I mean, he lost the first time to Golovkin. I don't think he won the second time against Golovkin. Against Bivol, I thought it was a cheer picking that went wrong. I thought he thought he's just gonna go and roll over Bivol, and he was shocked. Now he also takes fights that he has a built-in excuse. So when he wanted a rematch with Bivol, Bivol said, "Okay, I protected my belt. Now you go ahead, protect your belt." He's like, no. Because then I would think Bivol would beat him in 168, and then he won't have the excuse of there to be great, because look, he came to your weight class. So while Canelo, I appreciate him, like you said, he carried the sport and everything, he's being very smart rather than working hard, you know, and good for him, but it is what it is. I was a little bit surprised about what you said about Lomachenko, about him, you know, you compared him to Canelo and taking the easy fight. And then a minute later, you said that age is the hardest thing to overcome. I mean, I'm a Loma guy, just a disclosure, okay?
That's a good point.
But he's been fighting people bigger than him, younger than him, goes to their side of the world. Look at Cambosos. You know, he had a tough outing with the Lopez fight. But after that, he only fights top 10 people. So I don't think it's fair to put him in the Canelo, you know, going to
That's a good point,
fighting,
man.
Choosing an opponent.
You make a really, really good point with that. I didn't think about it that way, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, he has been fighting bigger guys, and he has been fighting younger guys. So, I mean, if you look at Devin Haney is basically a welterweight, and so is Teofimo Lopez, and he fought both of those guys. So it is impressive.
I agree. And also Jermaine Ortiz, he fought at 140.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that just because we are expecting so much from him, so when he's just like, he's not the same guy he used to be, obviously, but when he's just a little bit less, he's checked out. And I don't see that way. You know, he's still. One thing more about Chisora is a lot of fun, man. Chisora never cheats us, man. I love watching him. He's not going to be a pound for pound guy ever or top 10, but I never miss a Chisora fight, man. I want to talk now about Terence Crawford, and then I'll let other people talk. So people have Terence Crawford and the pound for pound. While I believe that Terence Crawford is an amazing fighter, I think he is overrated on the pound for pound list. Let me explain. He doesn't fight. He just does not fight. He was waiting for the Spence fight for all those years, and he fought a well over the limit Kell Brook. He fought Sean Parker. That was a good fight, but Sean Parker wasn't really at his best, you know. And they say, and he had chances. I mean, Virgil Ortiz called him. I believe Terence Crawford would have beaten him, but he said, no, you're not ready. He didn't take this challenge. After he beat what's his name, Spence, suddenly the other guy, Boots, called him out. Fight him. I mean, because the reason I'm saying that, because he's all over Twitter, I'm this, I'm that. It became really obnoxious after the Spence fight, tweeting everything, you know. If him and Shakur just fight more and tweet less, would be much better, in my opinion, you know. So he's right now on number 3. If Bivol fights Beterbiev, the winner of them is well above him, because their best win is over his best win. And I just don't want to hear people, not that I care, but I'm just talking because we're all boxing fans, that if he beats Madrimov, he's back on number 1 on pound for pound. Because Madrimov does not bring him back pound for pound. I mean, you have Noah Inoue and you have Usyk that are doing an amazing things. You know, there's no way, and who's the field? There's no way he's a pound for pound. I mean, that's all thing. Oh, last thing. I agree with you completely on the XY chromosome. This is completely against women's sport. Whoever gets the let athletes compete like that, that's ridiculous, man. And last thing about the monopoly in boxing, if the sheikh buys all the basically controls all the boxing, I think in the short term would be great, but in the long term, it would be horrible, because when a business doesn't have financial, it makes no sense financially to compensate so much and pay so much.
Right.
And it treats it as a toy, and eventually you'll get tired of the toy. And then what? And that's basically what happened to the PBC with Hal Heyman when they started. They pay everybody, and then nobody paid, therefore nobody fought. That's basically what I gotta say. You know, I appreciate you, and I'm a fan, and that's the best podcast, and I'll continue watching. And we're still at 2 likes, people. Come on.
Thank you so much, man. Great call, bro. Call back in, okay?
I appreciate you. Thank you, guys. Good day.
Right, have a good one. All right, we're going to take one more call. We got Thad here, so we'll see how Thad's betting the fights this weekend, and then we're going to wrap it up, guys. So there's a bunch of you on hold. You guys, we'll get to you next time. All right, we're running at 1.5 hours here. We're going to get Thad, and then we're going to jump out. We're going to get out of here. Thad, what's up, bro? How you doing, man?
Yeah, Mike. Got my 3rd cup of coffee already here talking boxing. I don't think life can get any better, right?
3rd cup. Holy shit. I try to limit it to 2.
Yeah, now we're talking. So, yeah, you got a bunch of likes. I think there's like 20-some when I clicked on, but
okay.
You know,
he just might need to refresh his thing.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's your cousin you're paying to come on and advertise for you. So, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I don't know if you mentioned about Lomachenko being checked out, but look, if I had a hotel in my home country and I named it the Loma Club or something of that nature, and the Russians blew it up, I think I would check out too. I just think the human nature of some people, especially like and this isn't a knock. Loma's a sensitive guy. He's actually a God-fearing gentleman. Like, he's a good person. He doesn't see evil in anybody. Like, that's why he's been taken advantage of in America. Like a guy like me, I could smell it. I mean, I could smell the con from day one. You know, they always say a fisherman can, you know, see a fisherman from across the way. Like, you recognize what you are. And yeah, I've been known to do that. So I know the general nature of people and manipulation. But a guy like Lomachenko, he's grown up respectfully from a father, you know, that trained him just to be the best. And then if you are the best, then the best things will happen. Well, it's not like that. Okay. So here we're seeing in real life time, a guy that just, you know, he doesn't trust the system anymore. He's been jaded. He's like, you know, a boyfriend that had his girlfriend cheat on him like 5 times, you know, and then finally realized, like, hey, why am I sticking around with this piece of garbage? So I think that's the real story here. And I'm glad that Loma told Tank to go F himself with his demand for $40 million or whatever. He's like, enough. You guys aren't going to be taking advantage of me anymore. So see, I wouldn't want to be like Wesley Snipes, right? So good on Lomachenko, because he doesn't need that fight. Tank needs that fight.
Yes.
And I think Tank's fans need that fight. which makes it even sweeter. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that before I move on, but
I completely agree with you. If I were Lomachenko, I would name a ridiculous price. If they can't meet it, I'd tell them to go F themselves, because they were not interested in fighting Loma when he was anywhere near his best. And now he's got a belt, right, and it could be a unification. I don't think Tank has ever unified belts. So from a marketing perspective, hey, we're unifying belts, we're going for undisputed. And then the type of fans, and I'm talking ideology here, that they market to, there is an angle to the Lomachenko thing that they'll love, right? And they're going to play that up pretty hard. So there's a reason why they're going for that fight now. If I were Loma, I'd tell all of them to get lost.
Absolutely. It's been 7 years. I mean, Lomachenko first challenged them in 2016, and Mayweather said, like, 4 years running, no, we're going to wait him out. No, we don't need him, blah, blah, blah. So you know what? Good. I'm glad. I'm laughing. Good for Lomachenko. You can retire and be proud. Yeah. Last couple callers mentioned Jalolov, and Usyk is actually at the Olympics, like scouting, I think.
Yeah, I saw
Perhaps. Scouting, yeah. So he saw a big knockout with the guy that's fighting Jalolov next, Junior T. If you're going to watch an Olympic fight, that's the only one to really watch that. It's really worth it. Junior T's from Australia. He's a tank. He's 6'6". He's like a Makhmedov Joe Joyce clone, like mashed together. Jalolov's like a Vladimir Klitschko and Vitaly Klitschko kind of cloned together, although not as dynamic, and obviously those guys were all-time greats, but he's along those lines. And let me tell you, I've watched him fight. If you're coming forward on him, he's going to blast you out. Okay? And these guys don't want to come forward, because every time they do, they get knocked down. He's a beautiful sight to watch. I don't think he has the aggression and the killer instinct to really become an all-time great. But he's just happy, if they're going to wait outside, he's going to outbox them. If they come in, they're going to get crushed. But this guy that he's fighting, he's going to come forward. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But he's still 10-1 to win gold. I got him at 3-1 previous to the Olympics. So I'm kind of happy with that. But you mentioned what would happen with Jalolov and Anderson. It would look like Vladimir Klitschko versus Calvin Brock and I was at that fight at the Madison Square Garden. And yeah, the theme was Calvin Brock was like the great American hope. Nobody remembers that, but he was an Olympian, and he took, he beat a couple guys, Jamil McCline, and Vladimir Klitschko just absolutely annihilated him. He literally knocked him out and walked over him.
I remember that.
And it was a definitive fight. And and then HBO was behind Vlad, and all of a sudden that was it. Like they pulled the plug on him. But I think Jared Anderson's sort of in that realm. He's been hyped up. He's a good boxer per se, but I don't think he's a good fighter. I think he's in there with Bakoli this weekend. And I have 3 upset picks. I think Bakoli's probably the least of my favorite, but he's plus 150. So actually, he's actually more likely to win than the other 2. But I think Bakoli will get outboxed, the first 6 or 7 rounds, and all of a sudden he'll just start hammering him. I think because everyone knows this and talks about it, that Anderson pulls straight back. He doesn't know how to fight a taller fighter because he's been fed a steady list of 6-foot guys. So it's his natural instinct to pull back. And when he gets pulled back, like he got exposed versus the guy who walks the earth like a king, or whatever his name was, I forget, but he blasted him with a right, and then Anderson really didn't have anything left. Like he was completely shell-shocked. He turned into Macho Camacho after Rosario blasted him with a left at Madison Square Garden in '86. That's the first HBO fight I ever watched, and I'll always remember it. But it reminded me of that. He had no heart after that. So I do like Bakoli to pull the upset, but I'll be surprised, if Anderson actually steps up, because this guy cried to Roy Jones Jr. because the pressure was too much. I just think once the pressure is dialed up, he's going to fold. So I like Bakoli by knockout. The other 2 fights, now this one I love because Andy Ruiz, everyone's thinking he's winning. No one's talking about it. I love Jarrell Miller in this fight. I think Jarrell Miller wins it pretty handily. If he gets the decision, fair and square, I don't think they have a reason to rob him, because I think Ruiz is done at this point. He's a plus 240 underdog. Okay? He's 2.5 to 1. You're getting money on him. his style, he's active. Who knows? He might be geared up for this fight. He looks pretty ripped, actually. He looks pretty good.
Yeah,
and God only knows what Ruiz looks like.
Yeah.
Ruiz, I mean, I think the real Andy Ruiz was a mix between the guy that went to Saudi Arabia at 280 and then struggled with a 50-year-old Ortiz. You know, that was a give and take fight. He should have blown Ortiz out, actually. Ortiz has no chin. So I think he's ripe for the upset. I just don't think there's a sense of urgency there. I think Miller wants it more, believe it or not. And after this weekend, Mike, you mentioned about the American heavyweights. I could see Jarrell Miller being the number 1 ranked USA heavyweight. I really could, if it plays out the way I'm thinking.
Man,
so I like
wow,
Miller.
You're right. I mean, that
like
is
Miller
entirely possible. That really is. Could you imagine that? Is that that can't be a good thing?
Wow.
Shit.
Yeah, it's like being the tallest guy in a room full of midgets. It really is. So it's just that simple. It sucks, you know. This is the culture. And you saw the American in the super heavyweight division in the Olympics. He came out jabbing. He didn't want to engage, and he lost. He was the favorite.
It's the way
he
these
was the
kids
number
are
1
being
ranked
taught.
guy. And
it's the way they're being taught in the amateurs, man. It's just.
He got number 1 seed because Jalal, you know, he didn't have the credential this year or a couple years in the amateurs. So there's like a weird ranking system. So he was number 1. He got knocked out by the lowest seed because all he did was jab. He didn't engage. He thought he'd just win a decision, be handed to him, and he lost. And that's the mentality. It's an entitlement thing in America. It really is. I think we're all guilty of it to a certain level, to a certain degree. I think we all are. But I just think that's the case. I think people are hungrier. And then that brings me to the last fight of the weekend I'm really looking forward to. And I compare it. I love history because I really do compare this to Canelo versus Bivol. Everybody was saying when Canelo was knocking out Saunders and all those guys, he could go up to heavyweight and beat Usyk. We want to see him fight Usyk.
I remember that.
Oh, that's not that big. Size doesn't matter. Oh, skill matters. Skill pays the bills. But guess what? Madrimov got Bivol ready for Canelo by mimicking Canelo in sparring. Bivol went out and he shelled Canelo, okay? So here we are again. Everyone's on Crawford's jock because he beat up a shot Errol Spence. Completely shot Errol Spence, but he didn't knock him out. He stopped him standing. I think that says a lot that maybe Crawford doesn't have that one punch knockout. He relies on a lot of people having the fight stopped. Against a guy like Madrimov, and I've watched his entire career, and I could see why they went with this fight. This is why they're very overconfident, because Madrimov seemed to get hit a lot against the guy in Tulsa. This one guy is like his 6th fight. And the guy came to fight, giving Madrimov problems. He was hitting him. Madrimov laid him out, knocked him out in like the 7th round, but the referee said it was a slip. It was a clean punch. He knocked him out with a left hook. I mean, you couldn't get any clearer on the replay and in real time because he lunged forward, blasted him with the left. It was like a Mike Tyson left hook. He was out. He got up and he was like shaky, wobbly. He couldn't even stand. But they said, oh no, because he lunged in and pushed him over. But no, that wasn't the case on replay. Well, anyway, I think Madrimov is very underrated. I think people have the wrong idea about this guy. He fights to the level of his competition, just like Bivol. That's a stablemate. Jalal is a stablemate as well. They fight to the level of their competition. If the heat gets turned up, they turn it up back. They fry the people with their own heat. That's what it looks like to me. And I think Madrimov is going to step it up another notch. And I think people are just going to be like, whoa, what are we watching here? Because I think they overrate Crawford a lot. Crawford's not going to knock out Madrimov. He has too good of a chin. He's too strong. The guy's a tank. All right. They do say he swells up to 175, but so does Crawford. Crawford's a big guy naturally. He's just been a weight bully. So they're about the same size per se. I think Crawford has more musculature from lifting weights and exercising, but I think Madrimov has the more natural muscle mass.
Okay. That
low center of gravity, and he's a good wrestler. And what people don't know about Crawford, he's a wrestler, and a lot of his offense comes in the clinch when he's moving his arms around, and he opens you up for a shot you don't see coming or is not ready for. He's very good at angling, but Madrimov is better at that tactic. He's stronger, and he could position himself. And I don't think Crawford's going to have that opening. I think Madrimov is going to turn into Terence Crawford and Crawford. That's what I think. I think Madrimov is not just a basic guy. He's not, what Mayweather said about Golovkin. He said, Golovkin has no special effects, right. But yet he denied Golovkin's request to fight him at 54. If that were true, then Mayweather would have fought him, because we all know he's a cherry picker later in his career. Early in his career, he's a real guy. But that being said, I think they sort of cherry picked Madrimov, expecting him to get hit in sharp shot. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to find out what happened to Canelo is going to happen to them. And all the people saying he could beat Canelo, we'll never hear that again. I think that talk's going to be done. Even if Crawford does win by some mere, like if he wins by decision and the judges see it, or say, Bivol won about 10 or 11 rounds against Canelo and he only won by 2 points on every card. Right. If it's flipped like that and maybe he gets a draw or Crawford wins by 2 points, 7 rounds or whatever, I think that talk is done anyway. I think people would realize that he has no chance at 68. Because I do think he's going to get handled by Madrimov on the inside. And another thing about 54 is that you use 10-ounce gloves. And hand size is very important. I found that out myself. You're going from 8-ounce gloves to 10-ounce gloves. I don't know the fist size of Crawford, but I don't think it's the same fist size as Madrimov. And if you put a little hand in a bigger glove, it just doesn't do the same damage. I don't care how much snap or torque you have behind it. That hand size does matter in a bigger glove. That's why when you're sparring, you're using like 14-ounce gloves, 16-ounce gloves, to try to lessen the blow. But I think this is all wrong for Crawford. But if he wins, he gets all the credit, because this is the best opponent he's ever faced in his entire career. And they're calling him pound for pound number one. I never liked it. I thought he had the softest resume out of all the pound for pound nominees. People want to say, well, Golovkin fought B-list and C-list guys. He fought better competition than Crawford. Let's be honest. Some of those guys were in their prime, at least. Crawford hasn't fought anyone in his prime at the top except for Postol and Aegis Kalviauskas. And the Kalviauskas fight was probably the peak Crawford has been. And he got dropped. He had some flaws in that fight that are going to be exploited, especially early. So I like Madrimov to win the fight. I don't know if he's going to get the decision. He's going to have to drop Crawford at least once, definitely twice to get a decision or draw. But betting the fight at plus 450, if you're getting draw protection on that, I think that's a chance worth taking. And if you like Crawford, the only way I see that is decision, and he's plus 200 on decision. But there is one caveat to that: who the referee is, because I know in America they don't like Madrimov's style, and I could see a disqualification coming out of the left field. Like I really can. If Crawford complains to the referee because he's getting wrestled or he's getting handled, or if he's getting lunged in on, I could see the referee like DQ and Madrimov. Because it's in LA. The politics are behind Crawford. They want him to win this fight.
I just hope whatever happens, it's not the judges screwing it up or the referee screwing it up. I just want to see good, solid fights. But man, I got to wrap it up fast.
Okay. But one last thing. The good thing is Riyadh season, they haven't had much controversy. So I'm holding out hope that, the Turk, he's different than these guys. It's not like the Haney, fiasco in Vegas and whatnot. So, and then the Andre Ward fiascos in Vegas. So let's hold out hope. But I think Madrimov wins this fight.
All right. Good stuff.
So that's going to wrap it up, Mike.
Appreciate it, brother.
All right. We have a nice day. Thank you.
All right. Real quick, guys. To Thad's point, I'm sharing my screen here. I just pulled it up on BoxRec, the top rated American heavyweights. I mean, the names here: Jared Anderson, Michael Hunter, Jarrell Miller, Richard Torres. I got Wilder on there, but he's done. Jermaine Franklin, Stephen Shaw. One of my sparring partners fought Stephen Shaw. Jonathan Guidry, one of my sparring partners fought him too. Cassius Cheney. I mean, I'm looking at these names, guys. Wow. Wow, it's bleak. If Thad is right and Anderson loses this weekend and Miller wins, Miller is the top American heavyweight out there right now. That's crazy. Didn't think I'd be saying something like that, at some point this year. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the fights this weekend. We'll do it again as soon as I possibly can. I promise. Pay the fee. All right, I'll see you at the fights.